Speak No Evil is now on Peacock, right? Yeah, I don't know if this was in the theaters, but honestly, I wish I'd seen it in the theaters. This is a very good horror movie. Actually, it's more of a suspense movie. It was kind of marked at that as drama, suspense, but it succeeds at being horror if you really want to be very particular about it, because, yeah, the situation definitely sets itself up for this. Speak No Evil is essentially about a couple. They have a preteen daughter who's very, she has like a comfort bunny, but she's obviously too old for this stuffed animal, and that's a very important plot point throughout this film. Anyway, one day this couple is on vacation, and this couple is apparently going through some dire straits right now. I think one of them, I don't know if it's both of them, but they are apparently unemployed. I'm not really certain how to make ends meet. What are they doing on vacation? Why didn't they save their money? I don't know. Maybe they had this vacation saved up beforehand and they just had to take it, and well, they didn't have any job anyway, so hey. So while they're on this vacation, they meet this other couple, and the husband is played by James McAvey. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he plays the young Charles Xavier in the X-Men film, and he was in the movie Split, and so he can play a very good psychopath. Now, I'm going to get into spoiler territory on this, but if you haven't quite figured this out, yeah, James McAvey is, of course, the villain of this film. And he's not a villain like, oh, we obviously can see that this guy is a villain from the get-go. No. This is one of those films in which, like, the main characters get to know somebody, and then they get to know them a little more, and then after a while, they start to realize that the person that they are getting to know is a complete, downright terrible person / psychopath. And the fact is, if this were, say, a comedy, then this would just be all a big misunderstanding, and they would definitely work it out. But the fact is, this is a horror movie, and eventually you're waiting for them to get to what I call the breaking point. And the breaking point is when the characters, the horrible characters, start to do something that is just absolutely terrifyingly terrible. And once this gets out, oh no, then the main characters essentially have to escape from the situation. And hey, do you even need to know that that's what happens in this given scenario? Yeah, that's what happens in this given scenario. So, James McAvey's character has a wife and a kid. Now, this kid is named Ant. I'm assuming that's short for Anthony, and Ant has a communication problem. He can't seem to speak. He's mute for some reason. We soon discover why. In a scene that I think is actually particularly very psychologically and objectively horrifying to watch. Because here's the deal. This is where this... dang, I'm really getting heavy spoiler territory on this, but I don't know how else to describe this film other than that, because this film kind of draws you in on this. Okay, so James McAvey's character, he is essentially, there's a lot of holes in this story, because the first time that the main characters meet him, he says he's a doctor, and he says he has like this, this estate that he has all this stuff in, but it's revealed later on when they're in this thing that he's not a doctor, and then he says like, no, I was just kidding you, I'm a doctor. And there's several times in this thing where James McAvey does something just horrific, and then he says, oh, I'm just kidding, you know, and then they kind of go like, oh. So there is there is a time in this film that I actually kind of thought that it could have easily resolved itself and to be some sort of comedy. I thought that would be an interesting twist if that happened. But because, remember I said that the couple, the main character has a daughter who's got this comfort rabbit? Well, apparently she finds, the main character finds their daughter sleeping in the same room with James McAvey and his wife, like in the same bed. And now this could have been a misunderstanding. Could have been that the daughter just was wandering around, just was looking for some comfort at night, because it's shown that the daughter has some kind of mental stress problem and just was looking for a place, and those two were just there, and so she kind of does that. But the mother sees this, and nothing bad is going on. All three people are just sleeping there, but the mother assumes the worst, which I would assume too. And they leave in the middle of the night, and they make sure that they start their car and sign quietly, and they leave the estate. Now, unfortunately, the daughter leaves her stuffed animal behind, and of course, they can't just leave without it. So they have to go back, and by the time they go back, it's morning, and James McAvey is, of course, going like, hey, why'd you guys leave in the middle of the night? And they have a little talk, and they realize, like, oh, hey, there's actually a point where this could actually work itself out, where you actually think, like, oh, this is just one of those movies like Vacation Friends or Meet the Fockers or something like that, where it's just like, okay, we're obviously just seeing a different type of culture here. But no. Because Ant shows something to the young couple's daughter. Apparently this family, well, here's what they do. They lure other families in. Then they find a way to take this other family's money by doing, wireless withdrawals. And then they usually, and I think their modus operandi or MO is to essentially steal the kid from the family that was there before. And in the case of Ant, he basically shows pictures to the young girl, the one with the stuffed rabbit, and shows all the families that have been there before. And then he does kind of this move, like, they basically muted me so I wouldn't be able to communicate this. And that point in time, that is when it gets like, okay, then this main character family really realizes, like, okay, that's where we need to leave. That gets to the breaking point. And there's a point in this film this is a film that just really drags out a lot of things. Because, and I'm kind of going like, okay, I've seen enough horror movies to know that they're just not going to, that James McAvey is not going to just let this family go. And of course, and at first times, they think they're going to let him go. And here's the thing, they even have a flat tire, and they could have, and here's the thing, James McAvey said like, oh, I guess you can't leave now because you have a flat tire. But no, instead he goes like, okay, I'll fix that flat tire for you. And then just kind of at the, as they're trying to leave, he just shuts the gate, and then he throws Ant into a lake, and Ant can't swim. So naturally, the main character father has to come out and save him. And then at that point, it's like, yeah, all bets are off. We're going to kill you, sort of thing like that. And so, not to get too, what do you think usually happens in this given scenario? Where, of course, this is a horror movie situation. So, of course, you can't just get on a cell phone and call for help. And usually you have to do something like, oh yeah, they have to, they can't just drive away, and now they're being held hostage. So actually hostage isn't really a best term for it. They're going to be killed, and then it's just a matter of how the main characters can transmit their wealth to the bad guys so they can just be taken. And here's something that I really think is interesting in this thing. James McAvey's wife, she gets sort of caught up in this action, and she basically tells the main character's wife, it's like, please help me out of this. I was super young when he did this to me, and I had to admit, they bring up that there is a huge age difference between James McAvey and his wife, which means that yes, he could have easily kidnapped her at a very early age, and that is really sick. Now, is this a really good horror movie? Yes. Is it disturbing? Absolutely yes. And I have to admit, the opening shot of this film is very, very good, and the closing shot of this film is very, very good. It is a good bookended film. It is a good film altogether, and I would recommend it. And considering we've had a year where there are a lot of horror movies have been nominated for Oscars, how did this one slip by? Anyway, it's been Mark from the Geek Church, signing off.